Welcome everyone. My name is Rick Rungaitis. I'm the CEO of the San Marcos Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you for joining us today. We've got a great Zoom meeting scheduled. I want to get right to it. So first off, I'm going to introduce our mayor, Rebecca Jones, the mayor of San Marcos. Rebecca, take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So excited to be here this morning and talk a little bit about San Marcos and why we're so safe. During COVID, not many people saw this because it was overshadowed by a lot of what was happening in our nation and in our county, and then also in our city. So we were found to be the 25th safest city in the entire state of California, which I'm so proud of that. So out of over 480 cities that are incorporated in the state of California, we're number 25. So that's significant. And if you knew anything about San Marcos in the early 2000s, the late 90s, we were more known for our gang issues and not being one of the safest cities in the county. So I'm so proud of what's happened. So over the last 5 years specifically, our crime rate has gone down 40%. And then also in the last, I think it's the last year, 18%. Is in alone, it was 18% that it went down by. And, you know, I believe that is based on many things. One of the things is our two deputies within San Marcos substation started a program called the Respect Program. That is something that actually is now being looked at throughout the state and I think nationally as well. And it's going to start being implemented elsewhere. So what the Respect Project is, it's an early gang intervention program. Our deputies spend, I think it's 16 weeks, and there have been 125 kids. They are middle schoolers and then high schoolers also that have graduated from this academy. And all of the city council over the last 6 years, because it started in 2014. Over the last 6 years, many of us have spent a lot of time nurturing these kids. Every year for the last, I think, 3 years, I've had them join me in the parade, or San Marcos parade that the Kiwanis puts on. And I think it's a good way for us to connect with them. But we also sit down with them. We have a meeting with them, but they have a lot of mentors within the community. And so they find out about what's going on, how to be a good citizen. And these kids are at risk, right? So they're kids that have either family that have been involved with gangs, or they're at high risk to become a gang member at some point in time. When I first joined the council in 2007, we did have a gang, help me out, Captain. I can't think of what it's called right now. Oh geez, I am blank. Thank you. And in 2008, we actually updated that. So what that allowed us to do is, if there were folks that were either in a gang or associated with a gang, then we could actually stop them and talk to them and, you know, get a little more information with them. And then I think it was also a way for our sheriff deputies to really collaborate with the community and have a better sense of connection with these people that really needed our help in you know, finding a life outside of a gang. And so that's one of the things that we have done in San Marcos specifically. The other thing is we have two full-time gang, crime prevention specialists that work in the city. So they've been with us for a very long time. I think Ronnie has been with us, I want to say 32 or 33 years. So she's been with the city for a very long time. This is actually when I was just a citizen, I had them come to my home. It was a deputy and then also our crime prevention specialist to do a neighborhood watch meeting. So they do all the neighborhood watch meetings. They go out when there is something that's happening in a community, an uptick in certain things, to figure out how to you know, be more proactive and stop crime. But anyway, so these are some of the things that we've done, but we've been very intentional. Another thing that not everyone knows is we've been very intentional about providing school resource officers. And I think that in our, you know, with our youth, I think it's something that's really important because our kids are growing up and, you know, it's an uncertain time. There's a lot of things that are happening in their lives, a lot of outside forces that, you know, you can either take a path that's going to be a positive path or a path, a different path. And I think having our school resource officers at the schools is really important. And we, when the district told us that they could no longer afford them and that they would need to discontinue the program several years ago, the city said, no, we really find it to be an important tool, and we obviously want to provide our sheriff deputies all that they need to keep our community safe. So we have, we did not do that. We did not end the program. So I would like to now introduce our captain, Captain Jason Vickery, and he has been with us since March. So we are very lucky in San Marcos. We've had such great captains that have come in. We usually have them maybe 2 years, but Captain Vickery had been with us previously, and I'll let you tell us a little bit about your background, and then anything that I missed, because I know I am not, I'm not in law enforcement, so it's not my my forte, but you know, I'm just sharing some of the things that I believe have been very successful in our community, and as a person that's been on the council for 14 years, strategies that I think have helped us, but you're certainly the expert. So, Captain.
Thank you. Good morning, and thanks for having me. Excited to be in the city of San Marcos. It is a highly sought after command for the captains. The city has supports the department and supports the deputies, and it's a place where deputies enjoy being and want to come to. For me, I've been on the department 26 years, and I started my career in the jails like most deputies. From there, I did a bulk of my time as a deputy in the city of Vista. So right next door, very familiar with San Marcos, as we work together hand in hand, the deputies and the detectives do, and a lot of the crime trends and things like that. After working investigations in Vista for 8-9 years, went on to become a sergeant. And I worked in the child abuse unit, the computer crimes unit. And after that, lucky enough to get promoted to lieutenant, where I came to San Marcos for the first time and was here for a couple of years, became familiar with the city, and really enjoyed my time. From there up to Valley Center, where I was the station commander in Valley Center for a couple of years. And after that, the last 3 years I've been down on the border, a little bit of a drive, working border crimes and narcotics down on the border, which is a real eye-opener. And then got promoted and was assigned here. So very, very happy to be here. Just to touch on a few things about kind of my belief on crime stats and why San Marcos has been so successful. Again, the commitment that the city has to the sheriff's department and providing enough resources. That's always a big issue with station captains, is the amount of resources we can get to address certain problems. And the more resources we have, actually, you know, obviously that's the way we can take care of business. One thing that's kind of evolved since I've been on the department is the way the department goes about attacking crime problems. When I first came on, we didn't have crime analysts that did the same things they're doing today. We had crime analysts, but usually they were just pumping out statistics and kind of sat in a back room, and detectives and deputies didn't really know much about why they were on board. Nowadays, our crime analysts work hand in hand with the detectives and the deputies and the command staff in identifying problem areas, issues, and doing a lot of work that used to be time consuming for detectives, actually doing research on the computer, coming up with trends, allowing detectives and deputies to go out and actually go, you know, and do the hands-on work, while these analysts are able to provide all the data. And when we get the data, then we just, it's basically working smarter, not harder, you know, and it's been a great tool. You know, the department, we use these statistics as a department every couple of months. We have, you know, some agencies call it ComStat, we call it accountability. And our analysts downtown will come up to our contract cities and identify what they see as crime trends, whether it be vehicle burglaries, assaults, And we sit in a room, the captains and lieutenants who run stations, and we address those concerns and problems. And hey, what are we doing to mitigate these issues that are arising? How are we going about that? That's something that wasn't done 20 years ago. These ComStat meetings or these accountability meetings, and it really helps because prior to going to these meetings downtown with the sheriff, we'll sit down as a station with the crime analysts and the detectives, and we'll identify what areas need to be addressed. Where are we having issues in the city? What needs to be, where are we having a rash of home burglaries or something like that? And then we'll put together a plan and say, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And we'll, as a station, we'll use all the resources here at the station to do that. And then when we go down to ComStat or accountability, they'll ask us, hey, what are you doing you have a uptick in this certain crime. What are you as a station doing to address that? I think that's a big, very helpful. I think it's a big reason why you've seen such a reduction in crime in sheriff's jurisdictions and specifically San Marcos. So, I think here in San Marcos, just to touch a little bit on the RESPECT program, what a model for other agencies, other stations. It's a really cool thing that's kind of, you look at it and you go, well, yeah, well, why isn't everybody doing that? Well, it comes down to resources, and luckily here in San Marcos, we have the resources to do that. Such a great thing. And, it really is cool to see some of these kids that come from troubled families or have been involved in gangs, or to have some other sense of belonging to something else and to become successful and move on and maybe, understand the importance of education and becoming a good member of society and what that means. So I know there's probably, in today's, what's going on with law enforcement, I'm sure, or I would anticipate some questions. I'm happy to answer them and let everybody know how we as a department are, what our stance is on certain things and what we convey to the deputies under these times, because, it has been hard, especially for some of the newer deputies out here that chose this line of work and got into it. And all of a sudden they have this going on, and relaying to them that, the majority of the folks out there support them, and that, here in San Marcos, every other day we have families dropping off gift baskets, gift cards, coffee, it sending emails and letters, and we put the letters up on the bulletin board so the deputies can see them and just let them know, hey, stop watching the news so much and understand the reality of it is we have so much support, and especially in San Marcos. And it's it really is. So every time we get an email, I forward it, and every time we get letters, it may seem like a small thing, but like I said, if these deputies are at home watching the news, it becomes a little bit overwhelming and maybe second guessing career choices and things like that in this day and age. So we're lucky to be here.
Thanks, Captain. And thanks for everything that you and the deputies are doing to keep us safe in San Marcos. Just a phenomenal job, and just the partnership you have with the city is great, and it just works so well. But thank you. I mean, now more than ever, and I say that I always say that from a chamber perspective, that when we've been through this pandemic with the small businesses, that now more than ever, the chamber is here to help you and your business, and even more importantly, and now more than ever, the sheriff's department is here to make sure you're safe. So thanks for everything that you're doing. And we'll open it up for questions. One thing I wanted to mention first, or just ask you to just maybe clarify a little more, because I know some of the questions I get sometimes is, why doesn't, and Mayor Jones, maybe you can jump in on this too, but sometimes they'll ask, well, how come San Marcos doesn't have a police department? And I say, well, they work with the sheriff's department. And they're like, well, how come they don't, you can get anybody? I'm like, well, no, there's a San Marcos station. So maybe just kind of clarify how the whole process works with the sheriff's department and San Marcos station.
I would love to answer that question. One thing that I did omit to mention earlier is that San Marcos has spent, we have the largest redevelopment agency, second to San Diego in our county, but in the top 6, I believe, in the state. One of the things that we also did, and I think really did help with our crime prevention is that we also spend a lot of money in redevelopment, specifically in the Ridgemar area, which if you drove down Autumn Drive 20 years ago, it was very different than it is today. And I think that has assisted our sheriff's department. One of the things that when we were we actually had the park, we had Connors Park, but it wasn't called that back then. And then another thing that happened is that when we were doing a land swap with the school district, so that, and this was based on honestly the sheriff's background and them giving us some information saying, if you do this, this is safer and that sort of thing. So we did the land swap with the school district, and we were able to then put through 2 different access points, which is Tiger Way and then also Westlake. And that gave better access to the Ridgemar area, which has been significant. But then let's talk about resources, right? Resources is always why we do a lot of what we do. And you know, a lot of people have said over the years, why wouldn't you start your own San Marcos Police Department? And for us, I think, first of all, you know, having the lowest crime rate in our history, 57 years, is significant to me. And, you know, I look at how, and by the way, we spend the least amount per capita in the entire county. Okay. I think part of it has to do with our having our folks inside our office that work directly for the city, but also again, you know, I think our gang intervention and priorities and really having the right resources. So when I look at the sheriff budget, it's very expensive to provide law enforcement to folks. But the good thing is that if we have a situation, like let's say for instance, the Cocos fire, if we have another, we will probably have another one of those situations. How it works for us is we call in for extra resources. We don't have to pay for those resources all the time. So we've got the SWAT team. We have folks that can come in extra anytime we need them because the sheriff's department is so large, but we are not paying for these resources on a basis of every single day. So the infrastructure and all of that, we had looked into it or talked about it, just wanting to know what that number was. And it was around $3 to $5 million. I know that's a pretty big range, but just to start our own department. But then the ongoing liability and all of that, it's extremely expensive. And in my opinion, if you have something that's working, why would you change, right? I'm very happy with the level of service that we've gotten. Again, you know, having the lowest crime rate in our history of our city is very important to me. And, you know, I tell all the captains this, and I'm not sure if I've said this to Captain Vickery yet. Sorry to put you on the spot, but, you know, we're the second safest city in the county. I think, you know, we are the largest of the top two. However, I really want to be number 1. I know that's mayor
no
thing.
pressure.
The captains probably have a situation going on, and the chiefs definitely of the private law enforcement. But I think, you know, we have so many things going for us. And you know what? Our citizens do come here a lot. I mean, I remember back, I used to sell new homes in the early 90s in San Marcos, and they would say, oh, wow, what's the crime rate like here? It was very, very different than it is today. So I know that people come here for a lot of different reasons, but safety is a big part of that, and that can't be, you know, ignored. So for me, as a policymaker and as someone that ultimately does decide how we spend our money, I think that getting the best resources for the lowest amount per capita is really important, but it's also having the quality service, and I am extremely happy with our service. So, Captain, I'm sure you have a lot of things that you could add to that.
Well, I'll just kind of piggyback on a few things that you touched on. It's funny that this topic gets brought up, and it's something that you know, I'm a little bit passionate about. I actually did a thesis on it, contracting versus having your own police department. And it really comes down to what you get for your money when you're talking about smaller cities compared to a city of the size of San Diego. And For us here in San Marcos and the deputies, compared to some of the smaller surrounding cities that have their own police department, we have a detective division that handles anywhere from a beer run at a 7-Eleven all the way to violent assaults and that type of thing. In addition to the detectives that handle those type of cases, we have centralized investigations, our major crimes division, and they handle child abuse, which is having come from there, and I worked there as a supervisor. That's a specialized type of investigation, and any child abuse crime that reaches the felony level here in the city of San Marcos, we send those crimes down to our major crimes division, and they're investigated by detectives that's all they do. So they're specialized in that. And the same for our homicide unit. Our homicide detectives don't handle any other type of cases other than homicide. Our child abuse cases don't handle any other cases except for child abuse. Our major financial crimes unit, they only deal with major financial crimes. These detectives develop these expertise, and it's such a great tool to have. And when you live in a city, and if you're a victim of one of these crimes, to have that type of investigators and the things that they bring. The other thing that the mayor spoke with was a SWAT team. So there's only 2 full-time SWAT teams in the county: San Diego Police Department and San Diego Sheriff's Department. All the other smaller agencies, their SWAT teams are part-time. So if the city of San Marcos, if we have an incident where we need our, we call them special enforcement detail, we have, I think, roughly 18 full-time SWAT members who that's what they do. They do high-risk entry warrants. They train for hostage situations. They're professionals in what they do, and that's all they do. It's not a side job for them. Another would be our Astria unit. We have, I think, upwards of 12 helicopters, including 2 firefighting helicopters. That is a regional asset. We will provide support to other cities. However, Serif contract cities and unincorporated are the priority of that air unit. So when we need air support and we need something like that, we are the priority for our air unit. So, and touching, the mayor spoke about Cocos. I was here for the Cocos fire, or some of the protests that happened. When the sheriff's department jurisdictions, when we need resources, when I need 80, 90 deputies in under an hour, I can get 80 or 90 deputies here in the city of San Marcos in under an hour to help us do what we're doing. I don't have to call for outside support from other agencies to do that. That's the resources that we can immediately get, and we have control over, and we can do that. Some departments will, I guess, to have your own police department, it's the reaction or the interaction between the council, the mayor, the city manager, and the chief of police. And the chief of police are usually at will. And I'll say this, here on the sheriff's department as a captain, when the mayor or the city manager have certain things that they want me as the captain of the station to do, or we oblige them and do everything we can. And I think the mayor can back us. The same as you would be able to do with a police chief, absent of anything that would be, unethical or illegal. Anything that they ask us to do, we will do whatever we can to accommodate that. So the control and the focus of where you want your law enforcement as a city, from the mayor or the city manager's standpoint, we will do what they're asking them to do, and focus on what they're asking us to focus on, as long as we have the resources to do it. So, that kind of covers the politics matter of it. I don't know that I've worked in a city yet where it was, I'm sure it's happened, but the sheriff is very accommodating to the needs and the wants of the elected officials and the city managers that we work for.
Well, then I guess it means we're going to be the safest city soon in the county.
Yeah, no pressure, right?
Yeah, I'm teasing. Captain, actually, as you were speaking, something came to mind. Don't other agencies often call in the sheriff's department because of the expertise and because our teams are so highly trained in a lot of cases? Because I recall back during the Amber Dubois and the Chelsea King cases, I do remember that the sheriff Department was extremely involved in both of those investigations. And I do believe too that a lot of the forensic evidence was handled directly by the Sheriff's Department, because am I wrong on that, or am I correct?
Well, we do provide assets to our, sister and brother cities and departments and things like that. I don't know this. I can't remember the specifics of those cases that you were talking about, but I know that we were integrally involved. I know that our crime lab, the Sheriff's Department Crime Lab, is a regional crime lab, and so we provide those resources. Our homicide unit, I know, assists some of the other agencies when they need assistance. So we are called upon, and when these other cities such as La Mesa or cities in the last couple of weeks have needed support, the Sheriff's Department gives them whatever they're asking for. Within reason of what they need. So we definitely support the county and the other law enforcement agencies and what they need. It is nice though to be in a situation where we as a department don't necessarily, we do, if an incident has happened on the border of Escondido, of course, we love our Escondido partners to come help us out. But as far as, resources countywide and what we need, we're extremely lucky to be such a well-funded and big department.
All right. So Rick, do you have a question now?
Yeah, before we open it up to questions, I just one of the things I've had a hard time of doing with Zoom is whenever we do events, I always recognize elected officials and board members. So before I forget this time, I just want to recognize some people that are joining us on the call today. Maria Nunez, San Marcos council member, has joined us today. And then thanks, Maria, for joining us. And then from our board of directors, Jim Ambroso, who's the new general manager at EDCO, and just recently joined our board of directors. And then also Tess Sangster, who works for the city and is our city liaison and sits on our board. So thanks for joining us. With that, I'm sure there's a lot of questions for the mayor and the captain. So anybody, go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question.
On the sports league, I saw it was basketball, maybe baseball. What kind of sports, like, I'm a wrestling coach. I coached at Torrey Pines and I coached at San Pasquale. Do they have any MMA, wrestling, or boxing programs?
Are you talking for the Respect program or the sheriff deputies?
Yeah, they respect the program, the sports league.
I'm not certain about that. I think we can check into that. I actually talk to the deputies on a pretty regular basis. I could definitely check into that. I don't know for certain. So if you send me an email, that would be helpful, and then I can let you know for sure. I know they have, I'm going to look real quick at my notes here. By the way, I haven't been following them, so I probably left out a lot of different things. Let's see. Yeah, they do. They have physical fitness, meals, group discussions, guest speakers, and field trips. And I think, yeah, if you send me off an email, so my email is @r.jones@san-marcos.net. Then I can follow up on that and get an answer for you. Because I think it is good for, I think it's good for all of our kids to be exposed to things that maybe they wouldn't normally be exposed to within their own families or their own community, because there are a lot of different things. Yes, that looks perfect. Yes. So I think it's good always for people to, be exposed to different things, like I said. And, I think too is, if you're interested, if you have a business where you might want some of the kids in our Respect Project to come visit, you might have internship opportunities or something like that. I think, and, I can't speak for our Respect deputies, but I think, trying to find ways to help our kids become more connected to our community and our businesses, I think is a way for them to have a sense of home. And, one of the things that I always say that I think is kind of missing in some of our kids, and, it's not due to any one factor, but you know, losing a sense of purpose. I think the best way to make our next generations more productive is to have a sense of purpose, to find that sense of purpose, to find their passion in life. And that might be, honestly, having a passion for some sort of physical activity that really helps them feel good and confident about themselves. Because let's face it, you can be educated in so many different things, but if you are not confident, it's very difficult for you to actually get a job and to continue with a job in a meaningful way. So I think shoot me off an email and I will definitely check into it. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? Okay, I've got a question. And this is just, we're talking about how the Sheriff's Department and works with the city. How about with regards to like Palomar College and Cal State San Marcos and the university? What's that relationship? Because I know they you know, both campuses have their own police departments. How does the Sheriff's Department interact with those departments?
I think Captain Vickery could probably answer that better. 3 months on, or 2 months on the job. Sorry. I do know that they do collaborate.
For sure. As a matter of fact, just last week, myself and the lieutenants were over there with the chief at Cal State San Marcos and his lieutenants, and talking about different issues they were having on campus, and with, you know, upcoming possible protests and things like that. And we talked to the folks over at Palomar as well as, you know, their resources obviously are very, very small that they have over there. So the bulk majority of anything serious would be something that we would handle and work side by side with them. So we have a really good relationship with their officers and their supervision and management over there. It's nice to have them, when there is something that happens on campus, it is nice to have their officers and their detectives over there be able to help us because they know the ins and outs over there of the campus. So.
And I imagine it's probably a little different now because school is out and the students are not, you know, driving around our city. You know, we have about, like 40,000 students from all of our different higher learning institutions, both Palomar, CSU, and then St. Augustine, and all of the other higher education. So I think, you know, it probably looks a little different than it normally would. And a lot of folks actually call me and say, wait, I just saw a CSU San Marcos cop driving around and they were ticketing people. And, you know, a lot of people don't understand that they do have a 1 mile radius that they are responsible for, that they can be involved with. And that way, if kids are creating issues on the campus and then they leave, they still have a 1 mile radius that they're able to, be involved with. And, you know, another thing that I would like to mention too is that at the quad specifically, that's in North City, right there above the chamber office, that is also it's separate, but it is also connected to the college. So any bad behavior that happens, there are academic consequences that would happen for things that the kids are doing off campus within that partnership between the quad, which is North City, and then also the university. And then I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Captain, but I believe that it's also both agencies would work on any laws that are being broken, any enforcement issues that need to happen at the quad specifically. But it is, again, off-site. However, it is connected with an agreement between North City and then also the university.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
A lot of people don't know that.
Thank you. Questions? Well, I'm going to take that as everyone's happy.
there was also something, and I don't know if you were able to send that out, Rick. I didn't see that. There was a response by the sheriff this week, or this last week, that talked about all of the things that they were implementing that people had questions about within our different communities. Really, it wasn't just specifically San Marcos, but it was throughout the county. And there are 9 contract cities, right, Captain? I feel
Yes.
like it. Yeah, 9 contract cities within the county that are sheriff contract cities, and then also the unincorporated parts of San Marcos. So Lake San Marcos, not everyone knows this, but they're not part of the city proper. So they're like the donut hole in the middle of the donut. And they are also sheriff. It would respond for crimes, but it's kind of a different situation because I think, isn't it the CHP that actually responds to traffic issues, which doesn't make any sense to me. I don't really know how that works. But I do believe that that is how it goes. But you can correct me if I'm wrong, Captain. I think I'm right on that.
No, you're right.
Okay. I don't really understand that. Maybe you could even shed some light on that, because I wanted to know the answer to that and I always forget to ask.
So in a contract city, obviously you pay for patrol services and traffic services, and any unincorporated areas such as the Lake San Marcos area or unincorporated Escondido or Valley Center, where there are no traffic deputies out there, the CHP, it's their jurisdiction. So in an area, bigger areas, like one of our bigger stations is the Rancho San Diego station. It's huge. And we provide law enforcement for all those people down there that live in unincorporated areas. However, the traffic enforcement and accident investigations are all conducted by the California Highway Patrol. So we kind of share those jurisdictions out in the unincorporated areas. They do the traffic and we do the other law enforcement activity.
No, because that has always been a mystery to me. Anyway, I appreciate you having us today, Rick. I really do. I'm so grateful that our community wants to be involved and wants to know about things that maybe they don't have the information on. But again, I had mentioned that there were the documents that were provided by the sheriff department, or the sheriff himself, to the different cities, and they are public documents. So if there's a way to maybe share those, if you haven't already, I think that would be great, or to have them available too. And I believe that Captain Vickery may have sent those over to you. Am I right about that?
Yes, and I also believe they're on the website, the sheriff's website.
Yeah, that'd be something. Yeah, valuable information we could get on our website as well to share with everyone.
Yeah, because oh, sorry.
I was going to say, just to let everybody kind of know what those are, is in today's environment and the calling for reform in law enforcement and how we go about doing our business. It kind of outlines how the sheriff's department, how we've kind of been ahead of the curve on all of this, and the things that they're recommending, we've been doing already. We've been trained throughout our careers when another deputy is using excessive force or was perceived as excessive force, it's our duty to get involved and stop that. We have things set up, like psychiatric emergency response teams responding to mental health issues. We send a clinician out with the deputy to handle those types of calls. We've been doing that for 15, 20 years. When we have any kind of serious incidents on the department, an officer-involved shooting or any kind of use of force that involves a serious injury to anybody, those incidents are reviewed by a critical incident review board that's comprised of sheriffs, commanders, and assistant sheriffs. And we do a presentation where sheriff's legal is also in on that. And we review each incident to find out whether or not we need to start an investigation, revamp our policies, and see if we can do something better. It's a pretty valuable tool that has been instituted, and it's been going on now for 10 or 15 years. We also have a division of inspectional services in addition to internal affairs. The divisional inspection services, they review all our uses of force after they're reviewed at the command level. So anytime a deputy uses force on the department, it's reviewed by his sergeant. After the sergeant approves it, it goes to the lieutenant. The lieutenant reviews it, it goes to the captain. So every use of force that any of the deputies here at San Marcos are involved in is reviewed first by a sergeant, lieutenant, then by myself. On most of those uses of force, now that we have body cam, I spend a lot of time watching those body cam footage to see if there's anything that, could have been done differently or should have been done differently. And then after I review it, it's reviewed by a division of special services. So there's a long vetting process every time we go hands-on with somebody in this department, and it's been like that for quite a while. So that's in addition to the internal affairs division. So if anybody violates any policies that or laws, that's an internal affairs investigation. So anyway, I think that's important to get at, to let out there. And I think everybody's well aware of the sheriff's department. We banned the use of the carotid restraint back on June 3rd. As far as chokeholds goes, those have never been taught. And I won't get into the whole difference between the two, but yeah, I think that the public, had a lot of concerns over the use of carotid restraints. And so the sheriff listened to the concerns and weighed out the positives and the negatives of us having that in our toolbox. And he made his decision. And so, and obviously it seems like a decision that was made that's, kind of made it across the country and all the way, the president's even talking about it. So I do believe that most of these things that we hear on TV about police reform, they're not going to affect the sheriff's department too much because we already do the things that they're talking about reforming.
Captain, I'd like to bring up something that someone brought up to me the other day, and where I can understand where they're coming from. I'd like to hear your take on it. So there are a lot of, I think now with COVID-19, it's actually exacerbated the mental health issues and the frustration of our communities and our community members and our families, because we are not able to go out freely and do everything that we want to do because a lot of things aren't open. We're not allowed to have gatherings of people outside of our families and that sort of thing. So I'm curious, someone had brought this up to me as to with a domestic dispute, why can't we just send out a social worker to handle something like that? What are your thoughts on that? Could you please maybe weigh in on that?
Sure. This is my 26th year being a cop, and I can tell you firsthand that domestic violence situations, typically can be some of the most violent situations we can walk into, where people are very emotional. There's a lot of times there's drug or alcohol issues going on when we get there. And I would, as far as even so much as getting called to an argument between two people that are involved in a domestic dispute, that can escalate so quickly into more than just an argument. I wouldn't want any family member or close personal friend of mine ever responding to a domestic violence incident that wasn't a police officer or somebody that had the resources that we have when we go in and they're able to do things. It would be if one thing that we could explore, and again, it's a money thing, is if you had a counselor or somebody that could go to these domestic violence situations and maybe be there as a resource to somebody, to either the victim or the family that could, provide those type of resources, and they may feel more comfortable talking to. But to not have a law enforcement presence respond to those type of calls, I think would, that's, I don't know how many people would want to sign up for that duty. That would be, in my opinion, extremely dangerous.
So I know that our district attorney is exploring a location in North County that they haven't been able to publicly discuss. Oh, darn, my phone's ringing. Anyway, I think it would be very interesting to see how that would actually be able to assist you in, in these sorts of situations. Because my understanding is that a family justice center that the district attorney is discussing is a place where there are resources that are available for these types of situations specifically. So could you maybe talk about that a little bit, how that might be helpful?
Sure. So many times when we go to these type of calls, um, one half of the situation it may be trapped where they are and not see a way out of their situation financially, or not have any friends or anybody to talk to and feel that they can't get out of it. So having a place where we can direct people to that can provide them with support or a place to go, or provide them with outs to get out of that toxic relationship that they're in. That's invaluable because I think we all know, and everybody's heard about the cycle and everything like that of domestic violence. And how do you get somebody, out of that cycle? And so instead of us just going in and arresting the primary aggressor in a situation and taking them out of the equation for a night or two, providing the resources for the victim to help them so that either stops or they can get themselves out of that situation, I think is invaluable. So that just and will stop us from down the road for having to respond again and either have that aggressor either change the way that change their behavior or get that victim out of that relationship.
Great. Well, I'm pretty sure that that is going to move forward. And Rick, just so you know, that was SDG&E. So I think the problem or the question might be solved, that they're doing some sort of work that they hadn't had scheduled. So maybe that's why the chamber had the electricity not working today.
Yeah, I told the mayor when we started, I was a little bit in scramble mode because I got into the office and I just unpacked everything, and then the power went out. So I jumped back in the car and went back to the home office and did this. But I did get a text that the power's back. So
Oh, nice. Well, I
I
think with COVID and all of the things that are happening in our world, how crazy they are, I think it's a time for us all to be flexible, to evolve and figure out how to pivot in situations and really figure it out. And I think it lends to our resilience. And I'm so grateful for the way that the law enforcement, that our community is reaching out to our sheriff department, our fire department as well. I think, I talk about this a lot. One of the best parts of San Marcos is our people and how we come together and support one another and really love one another. So I'm really proud of our community. And I think you guys are doing a great job, Rick. The chamber has been so supportive of our businesses. And, prior to COVID, and I don't have a statistic on this yet, we had about 4,400 businesses in our city, and somewhere right around 45,000 jobs. And I just hope everyone gets to come back. And I know I've heard of a couple here and there that are not going to be able to keep their doors open. I just hope we can recover, but we've got to do it safely. And that is making sure that we're following the law, of course, making sure that we're keeping our community safe, and also making sure that we are following the county health orders. And we will continue to do that as a city for sure. And we really want to get our community to get behind that as well.
Well, thanks, Mayor, for everything that you've done to help get the small businesses reopened again. And it's been a push from you and the city council and all the leaders legislators that represent our district, our city, have really been on the bandwagon to push Sacramento, to push the governor's office to get things moving. And I think we've shown that we can do this in a safe and healthy way. As I've gotten out more, it's just really been, it's been great to see how everybody, I think pivot's the word of 2020, and everybody's been able to open up and keep everybody safe, keep their employees safe, keep their customers safe. And it's been great to see. Are there any other questions? We just got a few more minutes, so if there's time for another question, if anybody has one. Okay, well, I must say, we moved here from Chicago. It's been 9 years now. I can't believe it. It's been 9 years, but we could have settled anywhere in North County, and I'm so happy that we settled in San Marcos. We love living here, and this is it's just the relationship with the city and the sheriff's department. I mean, it's during these crazy times, it's we've always felt safe. And I want to thank Mayor. I want to thank you for everything you do, and Captain for everything that you and the Sheriff's Department do, and appreciate you taking the time today to give us all this great information. One of the good things about Zoom is that we've been able to record all these meetings and put them on our website. So especially I'd say in the last 20 minutes of our meeting today, just some really great information that's so timely on what's going on in our country right now. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And again, to the Mayor and the Captain, thanks so much for providing all this information and taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Stay safe.